Hi, this is Reese Roper, and you're listening to our newest podcast ever.
Hey, everybody, this is Andrew and John, and we love this podcast because it's about us.
Welcome to Magnified Pod, the second season, our newest podcast ever. And Reese Roper, he's my real dad. I'm Andrew.
I'm John.
And this is our podcast. This is Magnified Pod, the second season. We've been holding out for... Oh, shit. I'll edit the beginning to the Magnetic Field song out. I mean, it wouldn't be the first episode of Magnified Pod without something going wrong.
It's true.
I'm so used to our old setup. We had everything laid out perfectly.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't have to even think about it. And
right.
So just rolling in, you know, so let's maybe back up a bit. So for people who might be listening to this episode for the first time, they're like, oh, Five Iron Frenzy, that's a podcast about that band. I like that band. Or hate that band, depending on what kind of Five Iron fan you are. Mm-hmm. So we started a podcast a year and a half ago called Magnified Pod with a sort of a play on the Magnified Plaid MXPX band name. And we decided to go through every album in the MXPX discography. And it took us, I feel like it took a while. And we were like, okay, so what do we want to do next? We covered everything about MXPX. And so then we decided, let's move on to do Five Iron. Because the MXPX Five Iron relationship is there, the end of our first season kind of culminated in that epic Five Iron MXPX 2 show situation in Chicago on March 29th, March 30th at the Bottom Lounge. Boom. And it was an amazing time. And we talked to the band while we were there. Mm-hmm. Talked to Leonore. We talked to Andy. And as you heard, Reese did the intro for the pod.
Thanks, Reese.
And so we want to kind of lay out what this podcast is going to be. Mm-hmm. We're going to get to that. We're going to tell you a little bit more about ourselves, so you know who we are, and but we're not going to belabor it because we cover a lot of ground in the first couple episodes of Magnified Pod. If you want to listen to those original episodes, all of our old episodes are on Spotify, on iTunes, on Stitcher,
Google Play, YouTube.
Yeah. So you can go back and listen to all those. But I just want to say, so even though, we're not affiliated with the band in any way.
We don't want to be.
No, we don't. But by getting the stamp of approval from the band, some of the bandmates, the band members rather, and Reese doing the intro, like it's sort of like a tacit endorsement, but we don't want anybody to misconstrue that any of our hot takes have anything to do with the band or anything like that, or that they support it. This is just like our MXPX pod was, a labor of love. We're just doing this. We're doing this for fun, and hopefully get some SpawnCon at some point. We got no SpawnCon from our MXPX pod. But
we got so many suspenders and checkered shoes and various ska items to potentially come on board. So
I know. I mean, if it can be two-toned, I want it to be two-toned.
mm-hmm.
So, but anyway, I just want to kind of have that up front.
We had a kind of mission statement in the first season about the whole 90s Christian bookstore alternate universe, having grown up entrenched in that world, but looking back on it with kind of a healthy degree of skepticism. And, after making our way through MXPX, we're moving on to another band that was really important to us from that era. But, we always wanted to talk about the music as a way to kind of dive deeper into culture, politics, faith, other stuff that we said in the intro. So
right.
We're not experts. This is not comprehensive and encyclopedic. It's there are bigger Five Iron fans out there, but
right.
They are very important to us, and it's a platform for a wider discussion and a place to kind of build a community. So that caveat to you that we're not gonna only say positive things about the band.
Right. That's something that I think was, some people, we said our fair share of not flattering things about MXPX. We didn't shy away. This is not, yes, it is a fan, but it's also not a fan podcast in a sense that we're coming at this from an objective kind of we're looking at it as fans, but also as people, dudes in their mid-30s who look back on an era of music that produced some great music and great albums that we like, but also some terrible music that exists in that era. Yeah. And we're not going to just not going to sugarcoat it like a sugar-coated poison apple, so to speak.
Sure.
Those MXPX references are going to be hard to not throw out there.
Indeed. Yeah.
But,
we'll get there.
Yeah. But we will, if we feel like something is worthy of criticism or critique or, those, sort of moments, we're going to talk about it.
Yeah.
And I feel like at this moment, it might be worth mentioning too, that just sort of talk about kind of who we are. And this is a long form conversational podcast. So it's not going to be abbreviated, but it's also it's going to be relatively candid, honest. And if you don't like swearing and the occasional dirty joke, I don't know, just know, just know that happens. This isn't a Christian podcast.
What?
John, just so you know.
The Lord's the Lord of me, so I don't know what you're saying.
Yeah, but I mean, we are friends forever, right. Because the Lord is the Lord of us. Mm-hmm. And John, I know you would not say never.
No,
because that welcome, it won't end.
Go back and listen to our Michael W. Smith episode for more of that gold content.
Yes. If you're saying Michael W. Smith episode, what does that have to do with MXPX?
Good question.
Friends, you have a lot to catch up on.
Yeah.
But yeah, so short version of my story. I'm going to keep this very short. Mm-hmm. Grew up in a Christian house. Dad was a pastor. Went to church. Went to Christian university. John and I went to the same college. I was part of an evangelical church about 5 or 6 years ago. Gave up my faith and decided I didn't believe in God anymore, and have been sort of on a spiritual journey of my own. Went to seminary as an atheist to try and discover interfaith dialogue and how to interact with people of faith when you have different views. And So I still find value in discussing things related to faith and having conversations with people who think differently about the universe and about what God is, and I feel like grace in difference is something we should all strive for.
Mm-hmm.
So that is about as succinct as I can be.
It's pretty good.
But
it's like a long elevator pitch.
Yeah. So what about you, John? Where are you landing before we? Because I feel like a lot of these stories will come up throughout the pod, so we don't need to like get into the nitty gritty right off the bat.
Right. So you want to know how my walk is going? I hear you.
Yes, I want to. I want to. How you?
So I grew up Episcopalian, so kind of in the mainline church world. So not quite as exposed and in the middle of all the evangelical world as you, but for a lot of kids, what happened in the 90s was youth group was a place where you came face to face with all that stuff. And that was the case for me. So that's where I learned about Christian punk and a whole bunch of other Christian culture stuff that became ingrained in me that I wouldn't have known about otherwise. And went to a Christian college with Andrew. I've only ever really worked in faith-based nonprofits, and I still identify as a Christian, but growing up through now, have always had a lot of questioning as part of my sort of faith identity. So,
right, which is healthy.
Well, thanks.
No, I mean, I this is something else that's going to come up probably in this podcast a lot, is me talking about therapy.
Right. Yep.
Because
that's therapy.
Yeah, I mean, that's religious trauma is something that I talk about quite a bit.
Yeah.
And I wish I had a healthier dose of skepticism, or that questioning was something that even was taught as important in the church, which it wasn't. Everything was dualistic.
Right.
But so I think this is a good point to kind of talk about how this pod generally goes, because some people might be saying,
boring.
You guys are so far have not talked about Five Iron at all.
Mm-hmm.
And typically how our podcast goes is we have it kind of split up into two parts. The first part of the episode is generally we have usually a conversation topic, or in this season we're going to have some games, and one of which I'm going to have today and today's episode for John. But other times it's going to be, maybe an interview, or maybe talking about something that's in the news, or just something that is tangential to, the band or our experience in the 90s or early 2000s. And then the second half of the podcast, we go track by track of an album. So today, for example, we're going to be doing track by track of Upbeats and Beatdowns, the official first release by Five Iron Frenzy. But so for some people, they don't want to hear our rambling bullshit, which is totally fair. So for those people, which is what we did with MXPX podcast, we leave a timestamp note in all the show notes and say, if you want to just get to us talking about the music, go for it. But, I feel like that would be kind of like sometimes jumping in at the end of a movie and being like, what are they talking about? How did they, what is this reference? What is this joke? What is, who is this person they're talking about? So I feel like there is value. And we want audience participation. We we have a voicemail line, and we want people to call in and say, hey, I had this experience too, or I listened to this album and this is my favorite song, or this is what I think about what you guys said. I agree or I disagree, or whatever. So this kind of relationship, that's kind of what we want and what we had with the MXPX version and what we want to continue. We didn't want to just end the podcast because we finished MXPX, because we grew to have these relationships, and like we made friends
for sure.
out of the podcast, and it truly is a unique community of people. And even though we might have some critiques of the 90s Christian alternative music, Christian bookstore scene, we still talk about how it is a truly unique and special time that, you know, we have a fondness for, even if we're like, oh man, that was kind of cringy or whatever. Yeah. You know, I just saw somebody post on a Tooth and Nail group that I'm a part of talking about
humble brag.
What? No, it's not a humble brag. You can. It's a Facebook. It's a Facebook group. You can join it.
Sounds exclusive to me.
It's not exclusive. You can join. But somebody was posting about the Diamante secular Christian music comparison chart, which we talked about
at length.
Early on in the pod. You know, the bands that are like, if you like if you like Blink-182, you'll like MXPX or whatever. And people were talking about some of the comparisons that were like really, truly horrible. Oh man.
This guy's the coffin guy today.
John historically is
the cougher.
Is the cougher. I feel like John was sick for a year and a half.
It's a new season. It's a new me. I've pulled myself together.
Yep.
Just in time for you to fall apart.
Yeah. You just needed that 6-month break from the podcast.
That's right.
It was
Cleared
all that
my head.
It was all that beer and whiskey drinking.
That's probably fair.
So speaking of listener feedback and people who want to participate and leave voicemails. So at the beginning of this episode, you might have heard me say, you know, welcome to Magnified Pod, the second season, our newest podcast ever. And Reese Roper is my real dad. Reese Roper is not my real dad. But what I want to do going forward is I want to have some listener participation with this. So I want you to finish this intro. So I'm going to say, welcome to Magnified Pod, the second season, our newest podcast ever, and fill in the blank. So we want people to send in, it doesn't need to make sense. Just send in, you know, you can email us, magnifiedpod@gmail.com. You can follow us on socials. This is normally the part of the end of the podcast when we tell everybody, but I feel like it's important to, you can follow us on Instagram, Magnified Pod, at Magnified Pod on Twitter, 872-762-4763 is our voicemail line. So
that's 8727 MagPod.
There it is. Man, I've gotten rusty.
It's okay.
8727 MagPod. Yes. John and I had a good division of labor with these things, and we've kind of fallen out of rhythm. But we'll get back.
It's like riding a podcast bike.
Yes. I don't know what the handles are or what the wheels are on this podcast bike.
Just close your eyes and grab on.
That's been my motto for most of my life.
Yep.
Okay, so John, do you want to? So what are you drinking over there? I'm drinking water because I'm sick.
Well,
and
I'll tell you what I'm drinking.
Yeah,
I'm drinking a little something brewed up by a friend of the show.
Yes.
Lead singer of my high school Christian punk band, Tiger Jack.
What's the name of that band again?
That's Tiger Jack.
Tiger Jack?
Yes, and if you want a deep Tiger Jack dive, go back to some early episodes. Here's some of our hot tracks. Here's some. Oh shit! Yep, that's us. Bass, 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 bass. That's me on the bass. So my friend Eric is the lead singer, and he's also a new dad as of this week. So congrats, Eric.
Congrats. I did not
very
know
exciting. Yeah. Santiago, their son, was born this week. Congrats, Eric and Aida. And he's also an excellent home brewer, and he brewed us a beer specifically for the pod. So I've got a fine bottle of that right now. I'll just crack it open into the mic per usual. And it's delicious. So thank you, Eric. And I think he may have told us a bit about this beer.
He did. Yes, we have a voicemail from him. So let's take a listen.
Bittered with enough hops to make this a true left coast IPA, the first taste will hit you like the opening guitar to Teenage Politics. And while the roots of this beer are based in the Northwest, the malting process of the barley was completed right here in Minnesota. All in all, it adds up to one magnified hop.
Yeah.
Boom.
So he used Pacific Northwest and Minnesotan hops. I grew up in Minnesota with Eric, but live in Chicago now. And then Andrew moved up to Minnesota and left me in Chicago.
Yes. So this, for people who maybe missed the memo, one of the reasons we took a really long break is because I moved to Minnesota, and back in August. It's been about 4 months, and we have in earnest spent the past 4 months trying to figure out the best way to make this work.
It's been a lot of trials and tribulations.
It's pissed me off. It's been super.
Most of our calls ended with Andrew going, "Damn it," and saying, "Okay."
We'll keep researching.
Yeah.
We finally figured it out.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I hope to be able to. I need to get one of those.
I was gonna say I got to save some magnified hops for you here.
Yeah,
but it's very tasty. Perhaps he can brew it on a mass scale one day for all the Magpod heads out there.
Yes, I would love that. So, John, do you want to? Should we play a game?
Oh, I always love it when you ask me that.
and it turns into a horror movie.
Yeah.
Would you like to play a game?
I'm into it.
Okay. So this season, we're going to be talking a lot about ska, obviously.
Pick it up.
We're going to pick it up all the time. And so we're going to talk about Five Iron. We're going to talk about other ska bands that they played with or that we liked. We're going to talk at some point to Jason Hockney-Zymet, who worked with Leonore on the Pick It Up Ska in the 90s documentary.
Mm-hmm.
He was on our early episode of the pod. And so anyway, we're going to be talking about ska a lot.
Making a lot of ska puns.
Yes.
Calling it a skadcast, things like that.
Yes, we will inundate you with puns. I want to know where you are in your ska knowledge, your ska-ledge, if you will.
Thank you.
And I want to ask you if you can identify if this is a member of a ska band or a serial killer.
Okay.
So I'm going to give you the name of a person, and you need to say this person is a member of a ska band. Okay. You don't need to necessarily bonus points if you know the ska band, or you need to tell me if this person is a serial killer.
Sounds good.
Are you ready?
I don't know. As ready as I'll ever be.
Okay. Ian Walton Fowles. Is this a member of a ska band, or is he a serial killer? And I'm gonna assume that you're not gonna be Googling these on your phone.
You can see my fingies.
Okay.
They're not on the keyboard. I'm gonna go ska band. Yes.
Correct.
He sounds vaguely familiar.
Ian Walton Fowles, also known as Eagle Bones Falconhawk, is a guitarist of the Aquabats.
Oh, interesting.
Yes. John Floyd Thomas Jr., ska band or serial killer?
I'm going serial killer. Yes. 2 for 2.
2 for 2. John Floyd Thomas Jr. is an American serial killer, serving a life sentence without the possibility of parole, convicted of murders of 7 women in LA during the 70s and 80s, and suspected by police of killing 10 to 15 more.
It's just got super dark.
Yep. Get ready. This could be a layup. We'll see.
Okay.
Elise Rogers.
Ooh. She's not ringing any bells. Ska band.
Bonus points I was assuming you were going to know.
The Interrupters?
Nope. She's the vocalist for Dancehall Crashers.
I knew that at one point in my life. DHC.
Yep.
What if somebody is in a ska band and a serial killer?
I mean, that is
Trick question.
That is quite possibly, could be Reese. For all we know, he probably is.
Probs.
All right. Stephen Graham Panter.
Panter. Serial killer. Oh.
No, Stephen Graham Panter, also known as Sir Horace Gentleman, is the bassist for the British two-tone ska band The Specials.
Oh, man. I'm not up on my special members' names.
No, evidently not. How about Dave Butts?
Dave Butts.
Ska band or serial killer?
Serial killer. Oh, man. I had such a streak.
He's the keyboardist and saxophone player for Bim Scala Bim.
Sure.
What about Stephen Griffiths?
Stephen Griffiths is a ska band member.
Nope. He's you were doing well. You had you were 3 for 3. No, but he is known to have killed 3 prostitutes.
Great.
Claims to have killed 14. And he dubbed himself the Crossbow Cannibal.
Okay.
As he killed his victims with a hammer and crossbow, then later ate parts of them. So,
great.
All right.
Has anybody played a trombone made out of bones? Because that would be really on brand for us.
This would, we need to start a ska band, the Crossbow Cannibals, and then we can make trombones out of
crossbow scannibals. That doesn't quite work.
We'll workshop then.
Okay, good.
Okay. Chaz Smith or Cathal Joseph Carl Smith.
Oh, man. I mean, that sounds like a serial killer. That's what I'm going with. Dang it.
Sorry. He's he's an English singer-songwriter, multi-instrumentalist, and a career spanning more than 40 years. He came to prominence in the late 70s as the backing vocalist, trumpet player, harmonica player, and dancer for the English ska band Madness.
Oh, man. This is embarrassing.
Yes. Linda Hazard.
Linda Hazard. Sounds like a ska band name.
Yes.
Finally.
Wait. Nope. Wait.
Damn it.
Wait. Nope. Wait. Hold on. I looked at it and I'm like, yeah, that's a ska band member. Nope.
No, serial killer.
Nope. She's a self-declared doctor and fasting specialist, which she advertised as a panacea for every medical ailment.
Okay.
Up to 40 patients have died of starvation in her sanitarium in Washington. Imprisoned for 1 death in 1912, was paroled in 1915, and continued to practice medicine without a license in New Zealand and Washington. She died in 1938 while attempting a fasting to cure herself. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Well, there should be a metal band named after her at least.
Yeah. So just so we're clear, she is not a ska band member.
She died before ska was invented.
Yeah. Steve Perry.
Steve Perry from the ska band Aerosmith. Was that Aerosmith?
No, that was not Aerosmith.
Ska band.
Yes.
All right.
Steve Perry is the lead singer of and guitarist for the Cherry Poppin' Daddies.
Oh, yeah. Right.
Also known as MC Large Drink. I also would have accepted MC Large Drink.
That's a great name. Joe Perry is the Aerosmith guy. Steve Perry, is that Journey? Is Steve Perry from Journey?
There are a lot of Steve Perrys out there.
I guess so.
I can't keep track of all the Steve Perrys.
Are any of them serial killers? Might be a loophole.
Let me check.
Yeah, he was the lead singer of Journey.
Nope. No.
All right.
Okay, I have one more.
Okay, this is good. I like this.
Earl Nelson.
Serial killer.
Yes.
Right. Only an Earl.
Yep. We're ending on a really dark one. He's a necrophiliac.
Great.
who primarily targeted boarding house landladies on the West Coast during 1926, also known as Gorilla Killer or the Dark Strangler.
Wow.
Captured after 2 murders in a small, now ghost town in southern Manitoba, found guilty and hanged by Canadian authorities in 1928. So shout out to all of our Canadian listeners.
Yes, way to go for that one.
All the Nelson heads out there who know the deal about him.
We should start a ska band called Gorilla Killer and write some murder ballads about him.
Well, what about the Crossbow Cannibals?
Well, okay, yeah, fine. That'll be our like tumble down-esque side project where it's like more, murder ballad stuff.
Okay, so I think you only got 3 right. So
that doesn't sound right.
I was not keeping track. But wait, hold on. You got Steve Perry.
There were a bunch of dings. I heard a bunch of dings.
I don't know. I wasn't keeping. This is like
get anything.
No, you get nothing.
You lose. Well, welcome to all the youth pastors who are listening to us. It only took us half an hour to get to necrophilia, so
it's probably a record for us.
That's weird.
Hey, so there's something else I want to mention before we get into anything else. Do you remember back in, I think it was June, when we were preparing for this pod, and we were at that bar? What was it? It was in
Glenview?
Yeah, the one in Glenview where we were working outside, and then this like drunk guy came up to us and was like talking to us, and we said that we were like working on a podcast that was about ska. Do you remember this?
I do remember this.
And that he was like saying a whole bunch of nonsense, and that he said he wanted to write something down in my notebook.
You have that?
Yes. Do you remember this?
I remember him writing it. I do not remember what he said.
Yeah, it doesn't make it, like, there's one word I can't really that doesn't really make sense. But he said, ska has been the only revolutionary tunes of the folks who know how to detail the times that couldn't dovetail to the blues. Ska.
I also like to end my sentences with ska. Well, shout out to that dude, because he was clearly drunk, but that was pretty.
He was hammered.
Yeah, that's an impressive series of words to string together for somebody in his state. So
yeah, I mean, he's
serial
right
killer.
Yeah, was he a serial killer? Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. Yes, his name was, and that man's name, Earl Nelson.
Yep. Well, I enjoyed that game. Well done.
Yes. Don't worry, I have some more games in store for you.
All right.
So if you have some game ideas that you'd like us to play, send them our way.
Yeah.
If you don't like us talking about serial killers,
why wouldn't you?
That's too bad. It's going to be well-traveled road for us.
Serial killers.
Nice.
Not really.
Yeah. Well, just because we're going to be making puns doesn't mean that they all need to be good.
Sure. Yeah. Okay.
So, John, is there anything else you want to talk about before we get to talking about them upbeats and beatdowns?
I don't think so. I mean, we should give a little bit of background and intro to the band, but maybe we do that as part of getting into the album.
Sure. Yeah. Why don't we do that? So, why don't we take a break? Because I need to get some more. I need to get some more water, and then when we come back, we will talk about. We will pick it up. We will talk about Upbeats and Beatdowns by the worst band out of Colorado, Five Iron Frenzy.
Yeah.
Our nation stands with heart in hand to sing their anthem proudly. Voices raised to sing their praise of their hollow country. From the south of freedom and the top of liberty. From your blessed.
All right, we're back.
Yeah.
And we are talking Upbeats and Beatdowns. But before we get there, John, another segment that we're introducing into this season is the five.
The Five.
The Five.
We gotta get a little cool sound effect there.
Yeah, well,
The Five.
it'll be echoey.
Uh-huh.
It'll be deep, and it'll be like the Five.
I like it.
And then explosion for some reason.
Yeah. If anybody wants to make that for us, feel free.
What the five is going to be is essentially 5 things that we individually think are noteworthy from the era that the album came out, or the year the album came out. So this came out it was recorded in 1996, but I think, did it come out in 97 though?
Well, I believe it was initially released in November 96
Right.
and then released more widely in 97.
Yeah, so and I think that's why we talked about kind of doing kind of a broad, like, we can talk about 96 and 97 for our 5.
Yeah.
So I don't know, we might have some crossover, but what do you have for your 5?
Should we trade back and forth?
We'll go back
items?
and forth. Yeah, we'll go back and forth.
Well, I'm very curious to see your list because I stuck very personal versus like broad social things.
No, that's totally fine.
Okay. So 96 to 97, that was my first year I started Christian school. I began at Minnehaha Academy, the high school of the Covenant Church, which Andrew and I used to share as a church. And it was an interesting time. I was much more confronted with some of that Christian culture that we talked about. And I also had James Eha hair, which I can't remember if I've talked about this on mic or not before, but James Eha from the Smashing Pumpkins had like black, yellow streaks. And I rocked that in my long 8th grade hair. And
how did we never talk about that?
I feel like I brought it up at some point.
No, you did not. We have talked about you having a mullet. We've talked about having frosted tips.
My hair has been on a real journey.
Bro, same. Samesies.
But that was, I felt like so proud and cool about that. And people called me a skunk and a bumblebee.
How long did it last?
I mean, until the yellow turned brown. So a while.
Woof.
But I thought it was a cool look. So that was what was going on for me then.
Well, okay. So I started a little bit more general.
I figured you might.
Okay. How about, okay, you started personal. Should I start personal then?
Sure.
All right. So you're a year ahead of me. So I started 8th grade. It was the first year at a brand new, our middle school was just rebuilt. And so it was a brand new school, and everything was really nice. And so one thing I did, I was in drama class. This is an embarrassing story, and I think
It's a good start.
I teased it last season, and I felt like maybe we'll talk about this in the 5 Iron podcast.
I can't wait.
So we had this drama. It was an assignment where we needed to pick a piece of music and then act out a scene that was not necessarily related to the music, but sort of like set up a vibe to a scene that you were going to act out.
Okay.
And like one of the girls in the class, she had some song playing while she was like waking up and like starting her day and going about doing things, just sort of like acting exercise, I guess, to kind of use the music to paint a picture, so to speak. So I chose Combat Chuck.
Awesome.
And so my idea was, I'm a superhero, and there's somebody who needs me, and I'm a secret superhero, and so somebody calls me, and I jump and I go and I save them, and it was very poorly thought out.
Sounds great.
But and I thought, well, I'll use Combat Chuck because it's sort of a superhero, I guess. And it was very short, and I just wanted to work in 5 Iron somehow.
Was it well received? Standing out?
Of course. Yeah.
Single tear rolling down the teacher's face.
Yeah, she was so proud. She handed over the reins to the class. She's like
there's nothing more to teach.
You've made me proud. I think back to this and I'm very embarrassed.
It sounds like all drama experience ever for me.
Yeah, like, oh man, this is gonna be so deep, and like just everybody's gonna be like, oh yeah, I totally get it. But yeah, it's like, here's this like really kind of fast ska song about this. Starts off with, hey everybody, this is Combat Chuck. Like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Did you like lip sync along to that part?
No, I didn't.
Oh, okay.
No. But yeah, this is also my brother's CD that I was borrowing to
Perfect.
Yeah.
Get him on the pod this season. He's got to get on this one.
Yeah, we'll have to get him on the pod. All right. So so I went more personal that one. So what's your second?
This one is a lot more general to society. I got my first bass.
Oh, snap.
96 to 97. I picked up the bass guitar. I learned some tunes. I found myself. I don't know. I wasn't really in any kind of proper band for a while, but I did spend many hours playing along to songs that I loved, including by MXPX and 5 Iron. And
nice.
Yeah, it was the beginning of a beautiful journey. So,
what do you remember your first 5 Iron song that I'm assuming Chick Magnet was the first one you played by?
I think so.
MXPX.
I'll get to it. When we get to the album.
Oh shit.
That's what they call clickbait in the biz. Little tease.
It's clickbait when you're like an hour and a half into a podcast.
Yeah. That's what we're gonna post as the you'll never believe what's in this episode.
Okay.
John got a bass.
So this is also, I don't know if this is embarrassing or gives me some sort of I don't know what this is, but also in this year, Good Burger was released in theaters. The All That sketch based around Keenan and Kel characters.
Yes.
Hey Jenny.
My wife has walked through the room to get some chips.
Smart.
Smart.
So I saw Good Burger in theaters.
Of course.
I definitely think I've talked about this on the pod before.
I don't remember this, but continue.
No? Okay, well, here is something else that I didn't remember until recently. Did you remember that Less Than Jake recorded a song, We're All Dudes, with Kel Mitchell?
never saw Good Burger.
It's time to put our times behind, get off the back.
Yeah.
This song legit rules.
It's pretty
Just
great.
hanging out, just having fun. We're number one. Just hanging out, just having fun. I'm a tip, he's a tip, she's a tip. We're all today, I'm a tip.
I do remember that. I'm gonna shout out a friend of the pod, Tyler Day, who's been on a previous ep before.
Boom.
And he texted me saying, talking about his daughter. She picked out Good Burger without any prompting tonight, so I'm feeling like I did right by my kids right about now.
Wow.
He said, it's so clear that Keenan is a comic genius. And I responded, guess what? I've never seen it. And he said, this is your worst one yet.
Your worst take, or your
Yes, just worst having missed something that was important to him. Now, I said I was 14 when it came out, so I guess I was a little too old. But for 13-year-old Andrew, he was in the theater. So this is no excuse for me. I never caught Good Burger, but I do remember that song.
Did you grow up on Nickelodeon? That's the other thing.
I did, but I feel like all that was kind of like after my time. I was more of like a Roundhouse dude. Do you remember Roundhouse?
Of course I do. That was the original SNCC lineup.
Of course.
You had your Clarissa Explains It All.
Yeah.
You had
Ren and Stimpy?
It was Roundhouse, then Ren and Stimpy, and then
Okay.
Are You Afraid of the Dark?
Oh, God. What a perfect 2 hours. So
Dude,
wonderful.
Are You Afraid of the Dark? They're coming out with an Are You Afraid of the Dark movie.
Ooh, I am ready for that.
Did we not miss the Scary Stories movie? Did that come out?
It did come out. Came out at Halloween.
Did you see it?
It's on reserve at the library.
Nice. I might need to look it up on Amazon or something.
I also saw the Scary Stories documentary, which is available digitally for rental.
Our boy Alvin Schwartz.
A Minneapolis resident.
Still? Is he alive still?
I don't know. It's a mystery. We got to find him.
Okay. So, from Good Burger to Alvin Schwartz.
That song is great. Well done. Thanks for bringing it up.
You're welcome.
Was that the end of that chapter?
Yes, that was my number 2.
Okay. Well, moving from one important piece of cinematic history to my number 3,
Naturally.
which is that I took my first film class. It was like an after-school class with this guy who was like a local director. But longtime listeners of the show know that I love films, and I'm just biting.
For sure.
This is going to be another ongoing motif for new listeners of the show is you talking you two to me. Are you talking I am Remy? References abound.
Yep.
Yes, I love films. It was formative for me, and that was
not
important.
not movies. Not movies so much.
No. If we're talking about like popcorn blockbusters, you can forget it. I'm talking films, buddy.
Scorsese.
That's right. Speaking of Scorsese, The Irishman, masterpiece, 3.5 hours.
Yep.
Do it.
Yep, it was very good. So
good.
So one of the things that I feel like I saw somebody write about it is that it is not only is it a masterpiece, but it's also a perfect Netflix film, because 3.5 hours is long. And I was seeing that some people were saying if they had to watch it in a theater, it might have made the watching experience a little bit more difficult, because it's easier to like get up and go to the bathroom and then like kind of come back to it and not just have to sit in place for 3.5 hours. I'm not sure how you did it, but like,
guess what, bro? You saw Good Burger in the theater. I saw it in the theater.
You saw it in the theater?
That's right.
Damn, you're legit, bro.
Cinema points. No, part of why I wanted to see it in theater was like, I wanted it to be an interrupted experience. I wanted to sit and not be tempted to get up or look at my phone or any of that. So anyway, this is brought to you by Netflix.
Speaking of cinematic moments, my number 3, 1997, Star Wars released the special editions in theaters.
Went to that shit.
I got my first chance to see Star Wars on the big screen
same.
when I was 13, which is the best way to ever see a Star Wars film. As anybody who knows me knows, I don't have any love for the special editions.
No.
But that's a longer conversation.
Have you followed the so they redid a new version of Han Shot First for the Disney Plus version? And what's his name? Greedo.
What the fuck? Grotto?
I don't know.
Oh, it's Groucho Marx?
Groucho Marx. Greedo, and this one goes, McCluskey, and then shoots him. Anyway, if anybody knows what I'm talking about, that's great.
So
Star Wars.
What they make?
Well, the version that they use.
Can we just get on the same page here?
Version. Go ahead.
The whole concept of Han shot first is bullshit because Greedo didn't shoot at all because Han murdered Greedo. There was no first. It was Han shot only.
Period.
He just straight up murders Greedo.
Yeah. Well,
it's also not how guns work, where you just like, Han shot me and then I shoot him back, and it's like, no, you're dead.
Yeah.
Stupid.
Georgie Porgy Lucas did not like that later and kept messing with it in all these re-releases where they would shoot at the same time, or Greedo would shoot him first, or whatever. So I believe in
how
this.
Han moves his head,
right? Yeah, it's stupid.
His reflexes are amazing,
right? But in this new version, I think they shoot at the same time, or maybe like Greedo definitely shoots at him, but I think Han maybe shoots earlier, whatever. But the point is, they added in this new piece of dialogue where Greedo says something to him before Han shoots, which is like supposedly an insult or something, but he goes, McCluskey. It's just like some weird word. Anyway, that's all I got.
He can't leave well enough alone.
No.
What a jackass.
You psyched for Rise of Skywalker?
Absolutely. I am.
Same.
And I am not. I don't know. The more I watched The Last Jedi, the more I enjoy it, the more I like it.
Yeah.
I'm really bored by the conversations about people who don't like The Last Jedi. It's well-traveled road. Your opinions bore me.
Yeah. Cosign. All right. Any more Star Wars thoughts?
No.
Okay.
What's your 4?
All right. Now I'm moving on from cinema to music. And for this, I'm sticking just with 96 releases because there's too much music in those couple of years that formed me as a human deeply.
Sure.
And I think I touched on all of these in our first go round with MXPX, but just briefly, I chose just 5 from that year that are very important to me. You got Life in General, MXPX. You got Pinkerton, Weezer. You got Odelay from Beck. Johnny Cash's Unchained, his comeback on American Records, and Destruction by Definition by the Suicide Machines. Those were a big 5 for me.
So kind of piggybacking off of that, one of the things I had for my 5 was huge how big ska was and how many big releases were in 96 and 97.
So many.
96, we had the final Sublime album, Turn the Radio Off by Real Big Fish.
Mm-hmm.
Sell Out was huge in 97, and the album was certified gold in 97. Destruction by Definition by Suicide Machines, of course. Losing Streak by Less Than Jake. Goldfinger's debut record in 97. Both Upbeats and Beatdowns and our newest album ever came out. My Boss Tones, Let's Face It.
Let's face shit.
Fuck you, man. Or should I say Smash Mouth's Fush You Mang, which came out in 97. Fury of the Aquabats, Supertone Strike Back, Evildoers Beware by Mustard Plug, Say Ferris.
It's so much.
It's so much. it was so concentrated with ska in 96 and 97.
Beautiful time.
And that Destruction by Definition record, I still spin that constantly.
So good.
The one thing that I'm glad, and this might have to be a larger conversation at another point. Maybe we will. Maybe we can talk about it with Leonore or somebody else in the ska scene.
Sure.
What they remember. But this was the case for the Suicide Machines and Real Big Fish. In some of their albums, they used the F word, the gay slur F word, in the Vans song.
Yeah, that whole song in general is questionable.
Yeah, so you're just like a club F wearing Doc Martens, and out of curiosity, I looked up a live video to see, like, do they still perform that song? But now they just say, you're just like a club kid wearing Doc Martens, which is like, it's totally, I mean, that could have been the original lyric to begin with.
Yeah.
And Real Big Fish also has another, gay slur in one of their songs. And I tried to find a live video and they still do it, but they do it from the perspective of a person who is an asshole. So they're using it as,
sure,
it's not in the same way that Suicide Machines was using it as like them calling that person that, but it's still like, maybe just don't, just don't say it. So, I want to talk to somebody about how obviously, there was ska against racism, and it was supposed to be a scene that was a kind of a unifying scene, but I'm curious about like what sort of gay culture, what there was within the ska scene, whether or not queer people felt accepted or safe within the ska scene. Yeah, especially if people were using the F word in their songs. If that was like, the queer fan base wasn't feeling it.
Right. Who has some interesting things to say about using slurs toward the LGBT community and then going back and reevaluating is Five Iron Frenzy. Yeah. We will get there eventually.
Yeah. But, talking about Mr. Fahrenheit.
Fahrenheit, yeah.
Yeah. So what's your final one?
All right. Closing it all out, bringing it home.
Boom. Land this plane.
We had a station in the Twin Cities, which I think is now like 93X or whatever. But at the time, it was called 93.7 The Edge, playing alternative music. And on Sunday nights, you had Under the Edge, where they played underground and indie songs.
Oh, shit.
And all kinds of good stuff on that show. But in 96, that was the first place where I heard The Old West, the song that we will hear shortly from Five Iron's Upbeats and Beatdowns record. And it kind of blew my mind. It was one of many songs played on the show that I recorded onto a mixtape and like became super important to me. But that's how I found out about them, through a completely non-Christian means. And
amazing.
So shout out to Under the Edge.
Shout out to The Current. Still, everybody should be listening to The Current. You can stream The Current. I'm still actively discovering bands on the radio in 2019 because of The Current, which is an amazing thing to me.
The Twin Cities has a ridiculous wealth of good radio stations, which is a reflection of the good music scene up there. But some of the folks were at The Edge, then went to Rev 105, who now a lot of those folks are at The Current. So anyway, we'll do our Twin Cities radio station pod another time. But
shout out to also The Message, which is like a hip hop show that they do on The Current too.
Yeah, cool.
Which is great. I'm into it. This is you closed yours out so perfectly with like a great transition. My last one.
I can't wait.
Is Nintendo 64.
GoldenEye?
Released in September 96.
Ooh, big moment.
Holy shit. that, you look back 23 years ago and the graphics are super questionable. The 3D rendering was a big deal at the time.
Oh yeah.
But it doesn't hold up as much, but it was a huge deal at the time.
Yeah.
Mario Kart 64 and GoldenEye were released in 97. And for the next 5 years at least, so much of my video game playing were those games and Ocarina of Time, which I think the Zelda game, I think that came out in 98. But during my junior year of high school, me and a buddy would take our school lunches, styrofoam trays and all, to my car and drive home to my house to play Mario Kart.
Sounds wonderful.
So we were just like, we just wanted to get out of school. And so we go home and put on battle mode and eat our school lunches and then go back to school.
Sounds wonderful. You were allowed to do that?
Yeah, we had off-campus lunches. Like if we wanted to go out, we could.
When you go out, you eat mashed potatoes? You get hit by cars?
We ate mashed potatoes, but we didn't get hit by cars.
Okay, good. Only Mario Kart cars.
Yeah. Well, we didn't get hit by them. We popped each other's balloons.
Right.
Which is not a euphemism.
So to speak. Yeah.
Hey,
quit popping my balloons here, buddy.
Hey, that's my balloon over here. You're popping my balloons, gabagoo.
The Irishman, now on Netflix.
Yeah, that was and scene. That was
my favorite Robert De Niro scene.
I loved Pacino. He's like, "This asshole who they're popping my balloons.
The union is gonna pop my balloons."
And Joe Pesci comes in. He's like, "Hey, you're popping my balloons over here."
That was a good Pesci. That reminded me of that. Remember that sketch on SNL where he was like, "Hey, it's the Joe Pesci show. I got my cup." Oh man,
no, I don't
Google it. Gotta Google it. Oh boy,
you got my Google it. Got my Google it.
That's great. Good stuff.
This is great podcast material.
More like Scabagool, am I right?
Nailed it.
All right, so that's been the 5.
I'm trying to think of more ska puns with Al Pacino. I've got nothing. All right, let's move on. No, it was terrible.
Robert De Niro, obviously.
Nailed it.
Martin Scorsese. Could go all day.
Hey. All right, so why don't we move into and so here's for people who are new. For people who are new here. Why don't we actually talk about the band a little bit?
What a weird idea.
No, I was gonna say let's get into the album. Why don't we just talk about the band a little bit?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I revealed an important piece of information in the previous segment, but Andrew, I have a really important question for you.
Yeah, I'm ready.
When did you first hear of Five Iron Frenzy?
So I think I first heard of Five Iron Frenzy through my brother Brian. I think I first heard ska through him. I know he definitely had Upbeats and Beatdowns, as I alluded to, that I borrowed his CD to play Combat Chuck in my theater class or my drama class. But yeah, he so I think it was either him or my cousin Justin, who had the OC Supertones. So it might have actually been my cousin Justin who had the Supertones adventures of the OC Supertones, and then but then I think it had to have been my brother who I first heard Five Iron through. But like a lot of those, I don't have like a particular five iron moment. Actually, I have these memory, like kind of like scattered memories. But I do have a first Five Iron show memory.
Ooh.
I don't know if we want to reveal that later or
Whenever you feel called to.
okay. Well, it's a very anticlimactic thing because I went to see them for the first time and I bought a 5-iron hoodie. But for whatever reason, I was super sick and then spent the entire 5-iron show outside throwing up in the bushes.
Oh man, that sucks.
So I missed it. It was my brother and John Ecker, who we also need to get him on the pod.
Yeah, he should.
Yeah, but so I was so sad. I asked him how the show was, and he said it was terrible. And but he was lying to make me feel better.
That's nice. Good big brother. Yeah, I heard Old West first, as I said.
Old Wed
Song about getting married. And
New York City.
Get the rope. Listen to one of our previous episodes for like an hour riffing on Pace Picante commercials. But then I heard Fistful of Sand from our newest album ever on a comp later. And I was like, this band needs immediate investigation by me because I'd already liked the one song and then I heard that one.
Are you sure it wasn't a Flowery song or Dandelions?
Hey, I like those songs. I stand those songs.
I'm not saying I'm just saying that those were the songs that I feel like were on so many comps.
Yeah. For some reason, and I think this was another I don't know. We'll get into this a little bit too, but I think it was even like a non-Christian comp. I think it was just like a bunch of ska punk music, and that song is still one of my very faves of theirs. So, yes. So 5-Iron Frenzy, they started in 1995.
Yep.
In Denver. As we've alluded to a bit, they always played a mix of Christian venues and non-Christian venues, and were kind of pretty solidly straddling both those worlds in a way that not a ton of Christian bands were. I think that's fair.
I feel like MXPX did that pretty well.
Yes. I mean, how could I overlook our boys? But I think there's a reason that we're drawn to those bands to talk about is because they were doing something interesting. And
well, they also, like, not to dismiss like the Supertones or anything, but I didn't go to an MXPX show or a 5-Iron show and then hear the gospel,
Right. Yeah. And they would play worship songs for their encore.
Sure.
Which we could address at some point. They don't do that anymore. But as we've talked about on this pod before, their lyrics always really addressed issues of justice. I think they were really one of my first kind of like artists really wrestling with issues of social justice. And like I said, the first song of theirs I heard was about genocide. And
right.
They always felt like a band that talked about, a place where it was okay to question and probe. They were funny, but they were still sincere in their faith and their outlook. And I think what was noticeable is like they were very thoughtful. They weren't just spouting the Christian music company line, and that like MXPX was like a place for me to feel comfortable. So I always appreciated that about them.
I also really appreciated the difference in their lyrics. Like you said, the message of justice, but also they weren't saying everything that Christians do is right, or they weren't like endorsing all things Christianity. Most of the songs that where they talk about faith, it's kind of pushing back on the Christian status quo.
Yeah.
They're saying we can do better, and I'm not going to associate my faith with nationalism.
Yeah.
Not going to associate my faith with materialism. It was bigger. Their faith was bigger than and then just something shallow, and that was immediately important.
Yeah, I think from as a kid in whatever 96, 97 who had James Iha hair and felt constant anxiety. A lot has changed, except for the James Iha hair. From both the standpoint of being like a punk or somebody trying to identify with the punk scene and trying to fit in and feeling insecure, and being in the Christian world, and feeling a little insecure about that. Like their lyrics and their point of view were a real lifeline and comfort. I think it was like, oh, they kind of get the struggle from both sides, which they address in, songs like Cool Enough for You and other songs that meant a lot to me. So
Right. So there's this long oral history article about Five Iron that you can find online, and I think it was a Colorado-based publication, if I remember. I don't have it pulled up, but they Reese talks about his first show that they played as Five Iron, which was April 17th, 1995.
Okay.
And it was at this a coffee house that a church had. And so he says Leonora's first show, I think she played at the fourth show. Dennis played the next show after that. Our third show, we were opening for MXPX.
Wow.
And I'm just thinking, can you imagine being around at that era?
Uh-huh.
The teenage politics era, the early days of MXPX exploring their sound. They just started playing with Tom. The early days of Five Iron. They probably had just come off of recording Teenage Politics, because they recorded Teenage Politics in April of 95. So what an amazing time. What a beautiful time. April of 95 was it.
I'm into it. Should we run down the list of band members real quick?
Hit me.
You got Reese Roper on those lead vocals. Micah Ortega.
Or according to the, if we're going to go off the liner notes, he's Kitty and vocals.
Okay. Kitty Doggy. We got Micah Ortega, rocking guitar and vocals.
And Sheep.
Andy Verdecchio, drums and vocals.
Other Birdie.
I forgot about that. Nathaniel Brad Dunham on trumpet.
Sloth. And background vocals.
I can relate. He played the trumpet, and I feel like a sloth. I played trumpet too. Dennis Culp, trombone and vocals.
And he's the original Birdie.
Okay. Leonore, Jeff the Girl, Ortega, saxophone and vocals.
And Fungus.
Why is everybody an animal but she's a fungus?
I have no idea.
Scott Kerr on guitar and vocals.
Monkey.
Sure. And then the timeline gets a little funky, but Keith Herrig on bass.
Log.
So basically, Scott was in the band from 95 to 98, aka the golden years for me.
Right.
He came back in 2011 and now plays bass in the band. But he had a lot to do with their early sound and wrote a lot of their music. And I stayed with them the whole time. I listened to all the albums, but and here's where people might get upset.
Controversy.
Some controversy. I only really loved the first two albums and the first EP. So that's basically all the 90s stuff, the Scott Kerr era. But, there was a lot of MXPX stuff that I didn't know about because I kind of fell off, and it was a real joy to go back during our show. And
bro, did you? Yeah. I mean, where would you be without recognizing how amazing Panic is?
For real, it's like a very important record to me now.
Yeah, and it's such a good record.
It's so good, and there's a bunch of other stuff of theirs that I hadn't heard that I really love now. So I'm looking forward to revisiting, to hearing some stuff I haven't heard in a long time or ever maybe. But so anyway, Scott, important to me. Sonny Johnston, who played in Ace Troubleshooter before that, band we've talked about on the show.
Right.
He replaced Scott in 98 on lead guitars, and then Keith left in 2003. So those are the many members. And I think that about does it, right? That gives us some good context.
Yes. And, I think we're going to I mean, you give a lot of love to the 90s stuff. I don't want to, get too ahead of ourselves, but between Pavement and Stars and Engine of a Million Plots, I think are a lot stronger and maybe less ska heavy, but they're stronger in some ways than I feel like the early works are. But let's not get too ahead of ourselves here.
Yeah. The only thing I would add to that is, I feel like there's this sort of existential question of like ska bands post the ska boom of like 96, 97, those years.
Yeah, because for a while, the bands that like gave up the ska and just like, we're a rock band with horns.
Right, exactly. And I think...
And then Real Big Fish, less than Real Big Fish, and like the Boss Tones are like, "Fuck you, we're still gonna be picking
ska
it up
for life." Yeah, picking it up forever and ever. But I think as much as I understand that the ska sound sort of went out of vogue, and as much as telling people that we're doing a podcast about 90s Christian ska for the uninitiated is like the worst phrase ever for some people. Like I feel sadness about the shift from like a ska sound to a rock band with horns, which I kind of feel like is what happened with Five Iron. And like I said, I could be wrong. I could stand corrected. I think you're right about those records, and I'm eager to get into them more. But I do now it's kind of come back in vogue with this, is there a fourth wave happening or not? But I feel like that ska sound has come back.
Don't say that to Danny Leary.
No, I know that's another controversy.
Danny Leary of Reliant K podcast.
That's right.
Fame.
Possible crossover ep coming in the future.
Yes. Yes. We are going to do a crossover episode with the Sadie Hawkins pod. I'm sorry, we didn't drop the name of the pod. Sadie Hawkins pod. Track by track podcast of Reliant K. Reliant K does have a song, a kind of joke song about Five Iron. So we are going to do a crossover ep with them at some point. Danny Leary does this podcast with his wife, Jess, who is like my pseudo podcast bestie because of how much we cross over with like our love of Weird Al.
I love it.
Yeah, I'm super like every time she brings up Weird Al, I'm like, yes, there's somebody else doing a Christian podcast who also talks about Weird Al too much.
I love it.
So yeah, yes, go listen to them.
Yes.
But anyway,
should we do this album?
We should. Let's do it, bro. First track, Old West. Yes. Woohoo!
Cowboys were riding off a range. The grass with all the brazier and spider like some range. Buffalo was dead there, trees the hour through, and it faced out some Indians. Free would kill them too. West of us, you got to trust and friend to kill and steal. We can almost justify anything we feel. Climbing up that ladder, riding for me. Work my way to Jesus, just you wait and see. Sent one cowboy to another, think it would be nice.
So something else we're going to do with this podcast is we're going to after we go through every song, we have a top three of our top three songs from the album per album. So Old West is my number 2.
Oh, it is also my number 2, bro.
Oh, snap.
What if on Five Iron we're totally in sync with our...
We're synced up with everything. I think that might happen with... I don't know. We'll see. Let's not... I don't want to jinx it.
So here's the deal. This album rules.
Yes.
The song rules. Spoiler, our newest album ever is probably my favorite. But but as we go through,
that would not be uncommon.
No. But I kind of feel like this is the teenage politics to our newest album ever's Life in General. Like, it's a little more raw, it's a little more political at times.
Yeah.
But I dig it hard. So
Same.
I mean, it's just such a kind of mission statement about, like, we're a band that talks about justice, we're a band that talks about being critical of faith communities, like you said up top. Somebody who's clearly wrestling with, like, real theological issues and not being dismissive. But yeah, there's a lot in there.
Well, also the very first song on their debut album talks about Native American genocide.
Right. Yeah.
And that I feel like if that doesn't set the tone for the kind of band they are, I don't know what does.
Right.
And before they even get to the lyrics, Reese has this little couple paragraphs about about manifest destiny and using the name of Jesus to justify slaughtering Native Americans.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, and also speaking of looking back on things and being a little critical, how do we feel about the use of the word Injuns in the lyrics? Is that I mean, I know it's used as like as sort of like he's not using it as like a right. I think this is an okay thing to say, but like a third party is referring to them.
Yes, because the next line is "Let's rape, let's kill, let's steal." So I think he's in that character mindset.
Right. Of course.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Maybe you'd think twice about using it today versus then. I don't know.
I think so. 2019, because he uses it twice. Yeah.
But it's pretty hardcore. I mean, I remember distinctly as a 13-year-old when the second verse ends with, "If they don't believe me, we'll put a bullet in their brains," just being like, wow, like these guys are not holding back.
But my favorite line is, "My motives are all selfish. I'm a cannon brimmed with powder. If people don't believe me, I'll just beat them and yell louder." I mean, if that's not 2019 right now. I was
just gonna say, it seems very relevant. Yes, the world needs 5 Iron.
There's this comic. It was a New Yorker comic, I think from a few years ago. That it was a kind of a game show set, where the host is. It looks like kind of like a Jeopardy kind of setup where there are 3 different contestants behind the podiums, and the host is saying, "I'm sorry, Mary, your answer was correct, but John shouted his wrong answer loudly, so he gets the points."
It's like almost funny, but mainly just makes me want to weep.
Yep.
So, yes, very much all that. I should say, just to give some context for the album. So this was released on 5 Minute Walk, which was a Bay Area label.
Talking about your walk, bro?
That's right.
Talking about your walk with the Lord?
That's the one. I think probably the W's are like maybe the only other noteworthy band on that label. From my research. But they were distributed by Diamante, as we've talked about, and also distributed by Tooth and Nail. And yes, as you mentioned, you can go back and listen to our Jason Hawkins Diamond episode to learn much more about the ins and outs of that. And it was produced by Masaki Liu, who did almost all of the 5 Iron albums.
Right.
So that's where we're at with this album.
Yeah. If you Google 5 Minute Walk, you do not immediately get the defunct record label.
Right.
But I'm trying to see who else. Oh, well, Brave Saint Saturn was on there.
Sure.
And Roper.
Yes. Both spinoffs that we'll get to eventually.
Yeah, we will get there. Smiley Kids.
Okay, yeah. I feel like
Yeah.
I've heard you talk about them. I don't know them super well, but
Fillmore.
sure.
Yeah.
All right. So maybe I was being a little reductive, but
No, I mean, I feel like it's kind of fair. No one is like, oh man, Fillmore. Let's do a Fillmore podcast.
I don't know. Podmore's coming soon. Anyway, that's the Old West. It rolls.
Yeah. It's my number 2. So let's move on to where 0 meets 15. So we're not quite to the chorus, but we'll just keep listening here.
Sure.
Where 0 meets 15.
Dig it.
This is a great song. Immediately going from one song to about genocide to being like somebody who's like, I want to do the best I can. I want to sincerely help people, but like, he says, how can I ever save the world on cup of soup and student loans?
Yeah.
It's like it's he's like, it's an impossible task. And just feeling helpless, sort of like I know what I'm called to do as a Christian. Where do I even start?
Right. Yeah. I think what I responded to it, to about it as a kid and still do now is kind of like the self-wrestling aspect of it. Feeling overwhelmed at the enormity of poverty. And sometimes it's maybe like a little patronizing about these figures he paints, but like certainly self-critical too. And yeah, I just think that kind of wrestling is still something anybody who is striving to do, I don't know, acts of justice, acts of good, but feeling very overwhelmed at the state of things can still relate to.
Yeah.
I really like the ending, kind of the pre-final chorus when that guitar comes back in. I feel like that's really a classic 5-iron sound at the end there. Later, yeah. Here we go.
The drums on this song rule.
Yeah. So good. Good job, Andy.
Andy, killing it, crushing it.
That's right.
I really love the driving drums on this.
Yep.
John, am I cool enough for you?
Yep.
Could I be cooler?
Probably.
It's true. The bass line on this song rules.
So good.
It's my number 3.
Oh, it's my number 1.
Oh, it's your number 1. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, this might be my favorite Five Iron song.
Yeah, it's a really good song. I mean, this could, I mean, it gets me pumped. The bass line just rules so much.
So good. Yeah, I love the music. I love the message, kind of like what I was saying before, the idea of like, for teens who are so looking for validation of what's cool.
Right.
I think it's a real comfort in the idea of like that identity in God is unchanging, for like a kid in a faith community. I think that's a really comforting concept. And like the last minute is maybe my favorite stretch of a Five Iron song ever.
Boom, boom, boom.
That slow build up into the last chorus and then the double time. Yeah. I'm going crazy. Yeah. This into the ending. La 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 la. Yeah, it's so wonderful.
Yeah.
So great.
Rules.
Yep.
But I think there's this album, this song rather, the message of musical purists, and there's nothing that makes me roll my eyes harder than gatekeepers.
Totally.
It just like, oh, you're not it's like, oh, you're a fan of ska? Name every ska band ever.
Name if they're a serial killer or a ska band member.
John can't, so he's clearly not he's not a fan of ska.
Yeah, you take your Vespa home because you're a jerk.
Yeah, I hate that way of looking at anything. Yeah. It's like, well, if you need to prove to me something, it's like, fuck off.
Yeah,
that's like, I saw somebody tweet something about this, and it's like, things that we enjoy aren't supposed to be stressful. So it's like, right. if like someone's putting you on the spot to be like, prove to me that you enjoy this thing. Like, right. No, I don't need to prove shit to you.
Right. Yeah.
Let's move on to Anthem. Unless you have anything else to say about Cool Enough for You.
No, sounds good.
Our nation stands with heart in hand to sing their anthem proudly. Voices raised to sing their praise of their hollow country.
Oh shit.
From the south of freedom and the top of liberty. From your blessed podium to giant victory. I can't follow anymore. To some silver tongue song. Your freedom isn't free. See red, white, and blue.
Yeah, other than MXPX at this time, who was subverting? What Christian artist was like subverting the idea of like what patriotism meant?
Yeah, certainly from the like explicitly Christian music world. That's a short list.
Yeah.
I mean, these are some of my favorites and most impactful Five Iron lyrics ever.
I can't fall anymore for your silver tongue song.
That's pretty awesome.
Boom.
Just like contrasting freedom of Christ with the false freedom of the American myth. I mean, that's very like teenage politics territory.
It is.
I'm into it.
Super into it.
My, I think I've mentioned this on the pod before, but my AIM, like AOL Instant Messenger, away message for a long time was, I can't see red, white, and blue waving in the air. I don't hear the bombs bursting, and I don't even care. like a cool guy.
Dude, you're super cool. I mean, we all had really cool aim away messages.
Yeah.
I think probably a lot of mine were Fight Club related.
Oh yeah, that sounds right.
I mean, I'm just trying to think, like, could a Christian artist this time of our lives right now, like, you know, you posted that video of those gross evangelical people at the White House being like, there's so much great stuff coming out of this White House. And I'm just like, and God is doing such great things here. And I'm just like, there are children dying in cages right now.
Yep.
And you're like lifting up God and this administration that just like really, really grosses me out. And I just want to see, I would love to see more Christian music with these kinds of lyrics right now, because I just don't feel like, I mean, I didn't really feel like this was expected in 96.
Right.
And I don't know. I don't know if I would expect it now, because I just feel like evangelicalism right now is a cult of Trump, and it has nothing to do with freedom in Christ or any of the things that Reese is talking about. You know, justice for non-white people, essentially.
Marginalized. I think part of why I was so grossed out by that video and why I posted it was like, those aren't like fringe people. Those are like very mainstream, worship singer-songwriters that are played in, their songs are played in most mega churches or evangelical non-denominational churches each week. And just like, there needs to be some accountability, wherever you stand, for like somebody that nakedly aligning themselves with, the powers and principalities. And like, I do think, we've talked about this a lot on the show, that like, I think the very siloed worlds of music and of Christian music versus secular music of our youth is kind of gone now. So I think in that sense, there are certainly Christian music artists who are talking about this stuff. But it's not as big a deal, because it's not like, well, you broke out of the CCM, contemporary Christian music world, and you're taking this risk. It's like there's little niche markets for each of them. But it's still that explicitly kind of CCM worship leader world. There's certainly not this stuff going on. So it's an interesting.
I mean, it's the only person that I could think of that was like some years ago that was explicitly Christian and was explicitly talking about sort of an anti-nationalistic sort of, what we're talking about, was Derek Webb, but now he's an atheist.
Yeah. Right.
So, but so I mean, he's a very interesting person, but I guess to your point. Yeah, it's not, there's not like this siloed kind of thing going on necessarily anymore. There are some bands, I guess, on Tooth and Nail that are. Silent Planet is another. It's another. They're a metal band, and they talk about some pretty amazing stuff. Anyway, back to Five Iron. Yeah. Let's move on to Faking Life.
Past and been denying, working out the soothing time.
What are your thoughts on this song?
This song begins a trifecta of songs on the album. This and the next two, I'm just kind of like, fine. I don't know. I don't dislike it, but it's not my favorite.
Yeah, it's one of the couple songs on this record, if you don't include the Amy Grant song, that are not written. The lyrics aren't written by Reese. This was lyrics by Leonore. I like the lyrics more than I actually like the music.
Yeah, I agree.
I guess it's also I don't really like the way Reese sings it. It's not. It doesn't. After those first 4 songs, it's just like, I don't know. The song doesn't really do much for me, unfortunately.
Yeah, it would be interesting to talk.
I got all the love in the world for Leonore, but it's
of course. It would be interesting to talk to her or others in the band or whoever about why she never did any lead vocals on songs, because Dennis does sometimes.
Yes.
And as we know, especially from The Fast Feeling, if folks are familiar with them, she can rock some of the vocals.
Get it. So, we are going to talk that Fast Feeling.
Yes. So anyway, maybe she should have sung it.
Yep. Maybe Reese should have just shut up.
Solid. Yeah, I wasn't including that in my trifecta of songs, but that one is also fine.
This is my number 1.
That would be incredible.
It is not.
When did you first hear of Shut Up by Five Iron Frenzy?
Shut up.
We should have that as one of our soundboard go-tos.
Exactly. Yeah, Danny Stairs calls in. Shut up. All right.
Perfect.
Now, Arnold and Willis and Mr. Drummond, a Five Iron live staple. Now I don't want to take Arnold and Willis and Mr. Drummond away from anybody.
Sure. Different strokes for different folks.
Nailed it. Yeah, I like hearing this song live. It's.
I mean, that intro gets me hyped. Yeah. Where they eventually end up, I'm kind of like, okay, I don't know.
Yeah. But it kind of goes with their vibe. They're not they're silly, they're irreverent, they have joke songs, as we will get to with the These Are Not My Pants opera.
Can't wait for that.
Yeah,
epic.
I feel like we need to have our top 3 pants
just of
songs.
the pants songs. I think that's a good idea.
Yep. But I mean, yeah, it's a fine song. Musically, it amps me up more than because I don't care. I don't care about Different Strokes.
No.
It's a show of the time, and I doubt. I'm curious if Reese, much like his Blue Comb, if he's just like, I wish I had sung about something else.
Yeah, like about some artsy. What if he was singing about like Twin Peaks or something?
You would love him even more.
I would really like that. I feel lucky.
This is the probably most meh song on the record for me.
Yeah, it doesn't do a lot for me.
No, it's a pretty boring song.
Yeah. Even the lyrics are kind of like, I don't know. It seems like kind of a weird thing to take a real stand about. Like, you don't control things that happen. It's God. It's not luck. I'm like, sure. I don't know. I'm not real worked up about it, I guess.
Yeah, I also disagree with that as a philosophy.
Sure. What's the line from The Matrix where he's like,
there is no spoon.
That is one of them.
I know Kung Fu.
Also one of them. No, where he's like, do you believe you control your destiny or whatever? He's like, I don't like the idea that I'm not in control of my own future or whatever. I don't know. It's along those lines.
That was a perfect Keanu.
Whoa.
Nailed it. Anything else that you were going to say about that? I don't remember. Sorry. Talking about Neo.
Yeah, I'm done with Neo. Let's move on. Milestone.
Oh shit. Oh shit.
Let's go.
If I had a nickel for every single time I tried to classify the populace around me with a word or catchy phrase, I could quit my job for good and play Nintendo until my fingers ache. Am I an idiot too lazy to think twice? I point the finger but I can't take my own advice. I'm full of evil something and ever since I've made it all of building my galaxy intelligence seemingly to me. I am so
This is my number one.
See, it's a real top 3 contender for me. It doesn't quite make the cut.
How
But-
is that even possible?
I don't know, but it rules so much.
Hold on. Just 1 second. You heard that part, right?
Well, yeah, maybe now it's my number 1. You know, I reserve the right to call an audible and make a change. We'll see. I mean, I have in my notes, love that opening. Let's open up that pit.
One hundo.
Yeah, I mean, that punk beat, then that bridge that you just played a little bit of rules. It's so fun. And I have sense memory of jumping in place to that bah, bah, bah,
Yeah.
bah at shows. What a euphoric moment.
Let's go.
So good. I also really appreciate that it's another sort of like introspective, self-critical song.
Yeah. What is economic status? Tell me what is race? Who decides to classify taxonomy of grace?
I have that in my notes as heady because I don't totally understand what that means, but it sounds pretty cool.
I mean, what is the scale of who is worthy of,
yeah.
of grace? Like, is
Right.
it somebody who is rich? Is it somebody who is white? Who gets
Totally.
to determine who is, who's better than who?
For sure. I mean, the idea of like the taxonomy of grace, that sounds like a book your dad would write or something. Like it's very lofty theological ideas.
Shout out to Jay Phelan.
Whoop. Eschatology. Yeah, the line about like, I point the finger, but I can't take my own advice. It's just another like,
Yeah, man.
We're hypocrites. We are.
There's this coffee shop in St. Paul. I can't remember like what it's called, but they have painted on the wall above the bathroom. Maybe you're wrong.
Mm.
It's
I like that.
Yeah, man. Just a nice reminder that like, yeah, maybe you're wrong. Maybe you don't know everything.
Yeah, I'm into that.
Are you into this?
Yep.
Starting from the beginning or what?
Yeah.
Oh shit. Love this bass line.
The man on the television said I need to drink this and sleep with that in order to be cool. And you know that I would do almost anything to be like a guy on TV. Well, I know that if I had just the right outfit and hairstyle, they could be me. Don't you know you can't be cool if you dress down and you have that? 'Cause everybody's got one. I think I'll stop smoking. That would make me intellectual. That's what I've always wanted to be. Why need to lift weights? That would make me more sexual. And that would be so good for me. In America, it's wonderful. Have to do is fake it. Own anything you want. Have to do is take it. Live for today. Don't think about tomorrow. Have a good time in America, Gomorrah.
Bus Toss America.
My number 3.
Oh, okay. Interesting. I was wondering if it was going to be this or a Flowery song.
That's a contender as well. I mean, yeah, I have some complex thoughts about this one.
Big
I think-
big Sondheim fan.
I am. Musical theater background. I think if it were just the verses, Milestone would beat this out. But the chorus, once it kicks in and restarts singing, and especially when we get to the West Side Story section, it really takes it to the next level for me. But the verses are interesting, you know. So this is one where Dennis is singing, and he wrote the song, and
With Sondheim.
yes, I believe that was a collab in person.
Yeah. It says Dennis and S. Sondheim in the lyrics.
One of the great songwriting teams. But you know, his songs tend to be a little more conservative
Yes.
than Reese, and it's critical of America, but sometimes in a way that makes me uncomfortable. Like America Gomorrah, I'm like, am I with you there? I don't know. And the like, you know, stuff about lawyers and the law. I mean, I know legalistic people suck. Don't get me wrong. MXPX shout out. But that's not the stuff about America that I'm like super worked up about. But I'm on board for the like consumerism media stuff for sure.
Right.
And then once it gets to the like, you know, everything's free in America for a small fee in America, really riding that West Side Story wave to be like an overall critique of, again, sort of like nationalism and the empty promise. I'm like, I'm fully on board with this. Yeah, and that bass line, like you said, is pretty irresistible. So
Yeah. I'm really on board for the most part until the second verse that sort of paints the non-Christian or the godless person as lawless.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's not true. It's like, if I don't need the Bible or God, so therefore I'm going to do a drive-by on your family.
Right. Yeah.
You know, those aren't the same things.
It's judgmental in a way that Five Iron is usually not. And
Right.
it's interesting to go straight from what we were just saying about like pointing the finger at yourself and taxonomy of grace to like, I don't need the Bible to tell me what to do. Like, but I don't know. I could still be convinced, but like truly when it crescendos into the I want to be in America, it's just like, it really hits me in a good spot.
Yeah. Another Dennis song on our newest album ever, also kind of smacks of a little bit more conservative theology that I'm just like, I don't know. Like, I'm all for different voices on an album, but it just, it does feel a little out of place.
Agreed.
But now on to a guy who's not so out of place, who loves everybody.
Hey everybody, this is Combat Chuck, and I love this song because it's about me.
Pick it up, pick it up.
Yeah, it's
Fine.
it's fine.
Yeah, that's what I have as well. Did you know?
He's either praising Jesus or he's making toast. You know, those couple things.
I like that. Okay, do you know who Combat Chuck is?
I looked it up
Same.
somewhere,
Yes.
and I did not write it down. I think Cornerstone. Was he a Cornerstone guy?
Probably. His name is Sean Matthews. He played in the band Pool, which probably played Cornerstone. But I know that they toured with Goaty Hook and Stavesacre.
Oh, nice.
He is also, this is the best part that I learned, the Banana Man from the Goaty Hook cover.
No,
So, yeah, legendary dude.
dude, that's rad.
Yeah. So shout out to that guy. Seems like a fun guy.
Why Chuck? Why Combat Chuck?
I don't know. I think he even addresses that somewhere. But
get him
like
on the
you, I bet we could get Chuck on the pod.
Yes, let's 100% get Combat Chuck on the pod.
Goals. Hashtag goals.
This is one of the the many times throughout this podcast you will hear us reference that we got to get someone on the pod.
Yeah.
But this
sometimes those dreams come true. We still got some MXPX adjace characters that we may need to get on the pod at some point.
Yeah, that's true. Anything else you want to say about Chuck?
I don't think so.
All right. Now on to another underwhelming song.
Yes. Yeah, I think it falls into that second tier category from this album for me, but it's fun.
And I'm not exactly sure who he's talking about. Like who's he calling for unity with? You know, because he says, "Don't forget who we represent." Is he talking about like other Christian artists who are not like walking the walk or something?
That could be. I took it more to be, again, the sort of like critical of Christians thing of like, you know, the only Jesus this world's going to see is the Jesus in you and me. That's when the line's like, you know, they'll know us by our actions rather than our talk. So like, it's up to people who claim to follow Christ to be Christ-like in their actions. That's more how I took it. And I guess, you know, Christ-like actions can be a subjective thing. So maybe it's more about like bands not cursing or whatever, but I take it to mean more like, are you living your life in a just way to people, that kind of thing? I don't know.
Yep.
Let's amalgamate.
Yep. So, when we talked with Andy at the show, in Chicago, the 5 Iron MXPX show,
Mm-hmm.
he was saying that they owned all their music,
Right.
and so we could
Do whatever we want.
do whatever we want. Does that also go for Amy Grant?
I mean, I don't see why not.
Do they own this song as this cover?
Amy is a buddy of mine, as we've established on the pod.
Oh, sure.
Michael W. Smith is a friend of ours. Amy Grant is a friend of ours. I think we're fine.
We're friends with Michael. Michael's friends with Amy.
Friends are friends forever.
Friends are friends forever.
Ergo, we can use whatever songs we want.
Exactly. We can do anything.
So should I find somebody who would never go? How could I know that I found with you? Now get reason to wanna love me and it by my mind. Everywhere I go, see your face through the crowd. Everywhere I go, hear your voice hearing loud. Everywhere I go, you wanna look that I see. Everywhere I go, you found me.
I assume this is how Amy originally planned to release this song.
She's like, I'm just thinking a classic punk riff and a punk beat for this one.
Yeah. So for those who didn't hear the original Mag Pod series, tell people why you have any sort of connection to Amy Grant.
So I write for a magazine. I'm an editor there, and she put out a Christmas special, as she's wont to do, and we got an interview with her in the magazine, and she's coming on the pod. No, but yeah, we did get to interview her. She seems like a good person. I like Amy. This was her first big hit, at least in the Christian world. This is pre-crossover into baby territory.
And when she sold out.
Yeah, that's right. Never forgave her. But I think this is a fun song, and I like the punk version of it.
Yeah. We forget that, we joke that we never forgave her, but a lot of Christians were over her when she got divorced and went what people considered mainstream with Baby.
Right. It's sort of the same as how like all those Christians then stopped following Trump, right? After like some of his indiscretions became public.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. It's like very similar.
Yeah, totally. Everything's definitely not a nightmare. All right, now on to a much better song.
Yep.
Oh, yes.
Hey.
That is a banger.
I love that song. It's a flowery song. It's a real top 3 contender for me. when you asked me about bass riffs that I would play, this was definitely the 5-iron one.
Nice.
It's just such a perfect little. Yep, so good.
Do you know what else is really good?
Tell me.
The music video.
I was just going to bring that up next. I distinctly remember downloading it from Kaza.
Sure.
Freshman year of college.
Sure.
And it's really something. They go for a little parade in the street there.
There's nothing more 90s than this music video.
It's pretty great. They're like coffee house beatniks in the beginning. But
it's just like it reminds me of a lot of like old MXPX music videos, like with Mike gesturing at the camera a lot.
Yes.
It's also like the backwards hat, like the
backwards
giant
red hat,
the giant
sideburns, jorts,
the giant shades.
giant shades. I mean, yeah, full like 90s bro.
Yeah, Dr. Seuss hats.
It's fun though.
Yeah, no, it's.
Yeah, you should watch it if you haven't yet, dear listeners. They have a little parade in the street and then go to a coffee shop where some bohemian types are playing and mix up that scene, get those guys to loosen up and have a good time.
That's right. Into it.
Yeah, the chorus is the doxology.
Yes.
Interesting. And
yeah, Reese seems to claim ownership of the lyrics of this song.
It's weird. It doesn't say our Roper, comma, the Lord. But whatever.
Yeah, the other great writing duo of all time.
Yep. One of the best.
Reese / the Lord and Dennis / Stephen Sondheim.
Yep. The big two teams. Yeah, that's the Flower Song. Ooh, this is Third World Think Tank.
Where's it, Georgia the Jungle?
George. Hey.
Well, I walked into the room and she was right there waiting, leaning up against the bar while she was perpetrating. Slinky Snyder's spandex and blacker than some coal. She said, "Okay, so I pop my booty with disco and I soul." So much boy, she shot so quick that she designed. Cut my with a doll, so pretty inviting me aside. Well, I can take you over me, step this bottle away. I would like you, honey, I'm about to die. Now you got a time bomb strapped into my chest. Waiting for the round of beat to get
I love it so much.
Really? You're into the
Yes.
song?
Oh, I'm way into it. Are you not?
I've always found it to be a curious
It's definitely curious.
closer.
It's weird and like I love that bass line.
I just think with going from a flowery song into this song, I feel
Yeah,
like they should have
yes.
flipped it.
I agree with that.
You're already having flowery song at the very end of this long record.
Yeah.
Why not just close it out with a banger
Well,
and not this kind of like, I don't even know how you describe it. It's,
I mean, I kind of like that it's like, okay, sort of this praise song, like doxology, whatever, and then into this just like weirdness and like, I don't know, the like trombone lead into the chorus gets me so hyped where it's like, it's just like,
yeah, and there are like some Bible verses referenced.
yeah, it's kind of a tough one. I mean, I think so. I don't understand the title. I should say that, but I think, yeah, he references like the parable of the poor woman who gave all she had, like that parable. I think the idea is kind of like we could die at any time, so let's live right. I think that's sort of my takeaway. But I don't know what a third world think tank is, or how that relates.
I do not know either.
Sounds kind of cool. Anyway, I'm into it. You're wrong, and
I didn't say I hated it.
It's curious in a number of ways. I co-sign that statement. That's the whole thing, right?
Hey, kids, it's Combat Chuck. I just want you to know that this song is about me, and we all love you. I want to do this again. Hold on. This would be an edit right here. Hi, kids, this is Combat Chuck.
I love
Everybody,
90s
this song is about me.
Secret
Combat
tracks.
Chuck.
Yep.
And we're rocking for the kids.
Everybody
I'll
did
give
a
you one
secret
more.
track.
Hey,
They did
everybody,
many per
this
album.
is Combat Chuck, and this song is for the kids.
He chose the right
Hey,
one.
everybody, it's Combat Chuck. I love what you're doing for the kids.
Boo.
Hey, everybody, this is Combat Chuck, and I love this song because it's about me.
Much better.
Yeah.
Hey, everybody, it's Combat Chuck. Keep on rocking for the kids.
I don't even know what that means.
Oh, man, that was stupid. All right, one more, and then I got to go. Hey, everybody, it's Combat Chuck. This song's about me. Hope you like it. Oh, and only you can prevent forest fires.
Boo.
They
Bye,
chose
guys.
the best one.
Yep.
He's going to be on the pod. So, should we...
Bunch of silly kids.
Also, possibly questionable. But, there's two Latinas in the band, so whatever.
Yeah, so we'll let it fly.
Yeah. Should we run down our top three again real quick?
Yeah. My top three. Milestone, The Old West, Cool Enough for You.
All right. Cool enough. No. Yeah. Cool Enough for You, The Old West, Beautiful America, Milestone, a close
No, you can't. You can't have it both ways, bro.
And triple stamp, a double stamp.
Triple stamp, double stamp.
That's Upbeats and Beatdowns.
Why don't you eat your burger and we'll talk about it.
That album's really good. I like that album.
Yep, I'm into it. I like it. You can tell us what you think about the album.
Yes. Tell us your top three, which we'll post about.
Yep. Yeah, when is this episode coming out, John?
Well, it's a good question. We'll get to that later.
Yeah.
But okay. Should we just close it out here?
I think so.
All right. Gonna get my act together. You can follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook and let us know what you think. You can rate and review us,
Yes.
which we would appreciate. Unless you have something to say, like a 3-hour podcast where they never talk about Five Iron Frenzy, hard pass, in which case you don't need to do that one. On Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google Play, Spotify, YouTube, all the places.
Yep.
What else can they do?
They can leave us a voicemail, 872-762-4763, 872-7MAG-POD.
That's
And
right.
don't forget to submit your intro suggestions.
Yes, please. Game ideas, general
Yes.
thoughts, your 5 Iron experiences.
Yes.
You can also email us if you want to leave something a little longer or attach some files of your shitty 90s ska band, perhaps, at
Please do
magnifiedpod@gmail.com. You can support this crazy venture of ours at patreon.com/magnifiedpod. And we really appreciate our patrons, our Patreon punks who have stuck with us low these many months of producing zero content.
Exactly.
Thank you, friends.
Yep.
But we got stuff on the horizon, and we got some cool merch you can get. Head on over to magnifiedpod.storeenvy.com.
Yeah, with our old logo.
That's right.
Got to get some stuff up there with our new logo on it, who was made by somebody who I don't know and colorized by Danny Leary of Reliant K podcast fame.
Shout out Sadie Hawkins Pod.
Sadie Hawkins
Shout
Pod.
out Danny. Solid dude, as always.
Yep.
Well,
I'm sure we'll get so many thoughts from him about ska on this pod.
oh man, many. Bring them, please. You'll probably be mostly mad at us. That's fine. Well, time is winding down, but only for this episode. We want you to be found enjoying the next step when we'll cover our newest album ever. Bye.
Can't see me, but I'm air skanking.
Chair skanking is hard.
This pod's gonna have a lot more
I mean, it's only right.